What's up, Exeters? We're here today on this beautiful Tuesday morning. It's blue skies, a few clouds, feels good outside. Anyway, enough about the weather. We're here in Canada, in Bowmanville, Ontario, at a pretty unique place. We're here at what's called Camp 30. All right, so in the early 1920s, Camp 30 sat on a property that was owned by John H. Jury, right? Now, he was a horticulturalist, I think is how you pronounce it, and a pharmacist. So he owned lots of land. And the land was known as Darch Farm. It was 300 acres. But in 1922, he kind of gave all of that land to the government. So like I said, in 1922, he donated this land to the government to build the Bowman Boys Training School. And he did so because after witnessing a speech by Alex Edmondson about juvenile delinquency, he wanted the government to create a school based on those theories that Edmondson had brought forth to kind of, help wayward boys, the ones that kind of act a little bad and everything. So 300 land got given to the government. They completed this camp in 1927. And just to kind of briefly touch on that, each boy has had his academic record or whatever assessed before he got here. Going speeding past that, the school was only open for 14 years, which was a pretty good time, to be open. But the reason it was only open for 14 years is because of World War I. And the government needed a place to keep prisoners of war here. Not just any prisoner of war, but like officers. They didn't want to keep them in Great Britain for fear of, Hitler and the Nazis invading Great Britain and then letting all the officers loose just to go right back out into battle. So they converted the boys' school into this POW camp. So here at Camp 30, there are 6 buildings that are still remaining. So we believe this building is the gymnasium / indoor pool building. So if this is the gymnasium / indoor pool, this would have been one of the first, if not the first, indoor pool in Canada. It was used by the boys training facility, as well as the surrounding community would come and use this indoor pool. So when they were forced by the government to shut the boys' school down and convert it into a POW camp, they had barely half a year to get all of this done, right? There's a lot of stuff here because it was a boys' camp, but it needed stuff to make it a POW camp. So they ended up having to, put up the barbed wire fences and guard towers and gates and all the stuff that you got to turn a school into basically a prison. They needed guard towers for the Canadian Guards, and they needed barracks for the Canadian Guards. So they did all this in practically 6 months. It was finally completed in October of 1941, which is when the first POWs started arriving on Canadian soil. So let's talk about life here at this World War II POW camp. For the officers that got captured, this was really not a bad place to get put because it had been a boys' camp previously. They had a lot of amenities that most POW camps wouldn't have. They had football field, they had soccer field, they had an indoor pool, they had a sports complex. I mean, the list goes on and on. They were allowed to come out and play football and hockey in the wintertime. They were allowed to write and receive mail, home to their families. I mean, come on. What POW camp would have had that, right? They also were still getting paid by the German regime or the Nazi army, whatever you want to call them. So they were able to purchase stuff from the canteen, like cigarettes and tobacco and pipes and pens and paper and ink and hygiene products, mouthwash, soap and shampoo. I mean, the list goes on. That's pretty freaking sweet. I would say they didn't really have a hard time here at Camp 30. So another good benefit of this POW camp that they had was the fact that they worked for the Darch farm. So their meals were far above like any other POW camp. They often included things like, butter and coffee and jam. And then not only that, but their meals were also had a lot of meat, roast beef, carrots, potatoes, gravy, the good hearty stuff that keep you going while you're imprisoned in a war camp that most other places ain't going to serve you. So let's talk about the most unique thing with Camp 30. Something that is totally unheard of, not just in a POW camp, but also just a prison in general, even in today's times. They went off of the concept of, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, so you got to forgive me, Ehrenwort, I guess is how you pronounce it. Anyway, it means word of honor in German. Anyway, so what that means is the prisoners were allowed to go and do things as long as they gave the word that they would come back to the camp and not try to escape. I mean, we're talking about like they would leave and go skiing in the wintertime. They would leave and go swimming at the lake, close to the camp in the summer, on their word that they would just come back, which is so freaking bizarre. I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, you guys want to go skiing? That's cool. Just promise that you'll come back. Yeah, we promise. All right. Which, I mean, it really helped the guards and the prisoners overall. It made them be more content because they could go and come as they please as long as they didn't try to escape. But that's just totally bizarre for a POW camp. Now, after finding a aerial photo of Camp 30, being able to tell that a lot of the buildings are gone. I know I read that there was one or more that caught fire and burnt down. But it also looks like there's a few other ones that are also either demolished or whatever. Not sure if what you see over my shoulder is a parking lot or not, but this could be where a building also sat. Not 100% sure on that. I do know that in the aerial photo on the other side of Lamb Road over here, which is now full of cornfield, was more buildings that was part of Camp 30. I'm guessing maybe that's where the guards' housing was. Not sure. Couldn't find anything on that. I just know that there was other buildings in the photo over across the road where the cornfield now sits. So, going to try to identify some of the buildings that I could find in my research and what each one was. Fairly certain this is going to be correct. So if I am wrong and you know more than me, because you've been here and you've done more research, then drop us a comment and let me know. Now, this building that you're looking at now, if I'm not mistaken, is House 4, which is the triple dorm that was also used by the prisoners to try to escape from. It says that they would dig tunnels or try to dig underneath the dorm or underneath House 4 to try to escape. Now, obviously, I don't think it worked just because I couldn't find anything on there being, any escape POWs. But, get an A for effort for trying. You have the Kiwanis house. Now, the Kiwanis house, they supported the boys' training camp when it was here by donating this building to them. You'll find the infirmary / general's house, which this house was used to house, sorry for the wording, but 3 German generals. So once you pass the infirmary and general's house and you walk on up, you pass the Kiwanis house. You get to the largest building here at Camp 30, which is the cafeteria. Because you're feeding a lot of prisoners. You're feeding a lot of staff members or guards. So you need a large place for them to eat. So why not make the cafeteria the largest building? This is a shot of the cafeteria. This is the only building with a fence all the way around it. I don't know if that's because it's fallen apart more than the other buildings that are still here, or if it's had more vandalism done to it. I don't know if you can see some through the fence here. It's definitely graffiti everywhere. I think with all the amenities that they had going on here and the prisoners' ability to leave and come and go as they please as long as they came back, that everything would be smooth. But it wasn't like that. So even though they had all of this stuff, they're still at this site behind me at the cafeteria was the site of the Battle of Bowmanville. Now, what started this riot was the fact Hitler gave an order that all Allied POWs were to be shackled. Well, when Britain found out about this, they were like, oh, that's how you want to play it? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing, but to your guys. So they sent word over here and ordered the Canadians to do the same here at Camp 30. Well, the Canadian Guards, they didn't exactly enforce it. What they did was they asked for 100 volunteers. Like, come on, guys. You want to volunteer? Please let us shackle you for a little bit. Of course, you ain't going to get no response from that. So they decided, we ain't doing that. We fighting back. They grabbed anything they could, hockey sticks, baseball bats, whatever they could get their hands on, and they put up a fight and barricaded themselves in the cafeteria. Now, the Battle of Bowmanville didn't last very long. I mean, it only lasted like 2 days, tops. And then it was, the Canadian Guards regained control. Now, you done caused a riot. You done barricaded yourself in the cafeteria with weapons for 2 days. Guess what? You ain't staying here at Camp 30 with all your luxuries anymore. So they actually sent out 125 of the prisoners to other POW camps. I mean, because why would you leave them here? They already started a riot, right? So we had talked earlier about the trust, the Wart, or however you pronounce it, word of honor. So you would think, okay, got word of honor, people, but they still tried to break it. There are still several escape attempts. None of them were successful. We talked about, them trying to, in House 4, dig tunnels out from under it, and mainly because it had air and ventilation and stuff like that. That was probably the most notable escape attempt. But another one was called Operation Kabitz, I guess is how you pronounce it. I don't know. My German's horrible. But that also failed. But what they had tried to do was break out 4 skilled German U-boat officers. But, they couldn't. They didn't do it. The Royal Canadian Navy put a stop to that, and that was the end of it. So just through the tree line and this grown up area, you can see this fence of what looks like would be the backdrop of, a baseball diamond. And I don't know if the camera can pick up on it, but out kind of in the middle of the field, you can see a soccer goal, the frame of it. All right, so the building that you're seeing now is the jury building. Now, not a jury building like, for the court system. No, this one was named after Mr. John H. Jury, the guy that had remember I told you, the horticulturist and pharmacist. So they named a building after him. Not really sure what this building was used for, but this is the one that was named after him. So at least that was nice of them to do. Now, one thing that we saw, but we didn't get on film because it was on down the road headed to the other gate, the other entrance, is 2 football goalposts. Like we said, we knew they played hockey, soccer, definitely football. And an entire field out there with 2 still standing bright yellow goalposts. Here's a closer shot of that platform. I mean, you can tell it's got power lines on each side, but still looks like a guard could have potentially stood here, because right here looks like it's got lights on it. So I don't know. But here on top of this little mound that we're standing on is also 2 hatches. Now you can tell they put huge boulders on top of or in these, but you can actually see the steps for the ladder that would go down into who knows where. Definitely probably as deep as the mound that we're standing on, but who knows where it goes.
So given the history of Camp 30, a lot of people come here for ghost hunting. They think it's haunted.
Woohoo!
And it very much could be. I don't know. People report having an unsettling feeling when they're here on the property. I haven't really experienced that today.
No,
it's actually a nice walk, which I'm sure it probably could change severely at night. They often hear disembodied voices, strange sounds, such as keys jingling, and just overall, just creepiness.
I mean, yeah, it may be different at night, but I don't feel like that right now. I mean, because I didn't find anything about anyone dying here or, being tortured or anything like that. I mean, the prisoners had it pretty good, yeah.
But
I mean, now that's not to say that people haven't, because, I mean, you've seen all the graffiti on the buildings that people haven't broken in and done Ouija boards and seances and everything else and brought something here, but I don't think it's from it being a POW camp or anything like that.
So, just if you come here to visit, stick to the trail, be respectful of the property, because it is a huge part of history.
Yeah.
Don't destroy it any more than it is.
Right. Just stick on the blacktop and you'll be all right.
Enjoy it.
Just enjoy the buildings without actually going up to them, and enjoy the area. And if you got a pet, bring your pet. I've seen several people out walking their dogs here, and real peaceful. All right, well, that does it for us on this exit and this adventure. Catch you guys down the road at the next one.
Keep it spooky.
Later.